Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners Postgame Podcast, powered by Olipop.
It's Cherry Cola again tonight, folks. Olipop is the soda that's good for you. Prebiotics to enhance digestive health, plus 9 grams of fiber in every single can, and it tastes exactly like those conventional classic sodas you know and love. 16 different flavors. And folks, once again, this is soda that comes with health benefits instead of loads of sugar and acid that are going to affect your body negatively. Check them out at drinkolipop.com. Find the flavor for you and use promo code CHAMPU20 to get 20% off your very first online order.
All right, Oklahoma beat TCU 69-45. I am so tired, folks. I almost forgot who they even played today. If you're watching on YouTube, you can totally see that I have a 2-month-old baby.
And he's hatless today, as many have noted.
Today.
No hat.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, I was reading the YouTube comments on the rapid reaction, and yeah, everybody did take notice of the no hat. Yeah, it was a game that was Parker. Okay, first things first. We called it with Dylan Gabriel, so we're gonna pat ourselves on the back there a little bit. If you're on OU Insider,
let's phrase this properly. We didn't call it, Brandon. We had good sources that fed us accurate information on Dylan Gabriel's status.
That is correct. The sources helped us put accurate information up on the board if you were on OU Insider, which right now, for $24, you can get for a whole year. Black Friday sale ends on Monday. What would Monday the day be, Parker?
Monday would be November 27th. Here, watch 7th? This. I'll flash a graphic up on the screen right now. If you're on YouTube,
boom, you see it right there.
There you go. There's your promo code. You enter that promo code, you get the discount. It's 75% off. It's going to be less than $3 a month for the first year of your subscription. And folks, make no mistake, we will make it worth your while. For those who are listening on the audio side, Rivals 2023 is the promo code that you can enter for 75% off your subscription with us at ouinsider.com, where you are going to be fed more and better OU football, basketball, and recruiting information than you will get anywhere.
Yeah, facts. And not only that, look, you'll get all the way through the SEC. Like the first season in the SEC, boom, paid for $24. That is a steal of a deal, and you can't beat it, and you'll be along with the ride. You'll join us, and you'll join thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of other OU fans that are on OU Insider already. Our board is hopping right now with a lot of transfer portal talk, a lot of Jeff Lebby talk, which we're going to talk about on here. And then a lot of upset people about the defense, which we're going to talk about on here as well. But like I was saying, this game was kind of a dichotomy of two things. It was the offense soared, and as Brent Venables eloquently called it in the presser, the defense was an abomination of football today. And outside of Billy Bowman, I think Billy Bowman and Kendall Dolby can kind of exclude themselves out of that talk. But the rest of the defense was really porous, to say the least, Parker. But 69 points. Oklahoma is one of, two teams? We're the only team that has done 59 points or more 4 times this season.
Yeah.
And that right there is why Jeff Lebby's up for a head coaching job in the SEC for those Jeff Lebby haters.
I'll tell you, Brandon. And we will get to the whole
haters.
Yeah, we will get to the whole Jeff Lebby conversation in much greater detail here in a bit. But Jeff Lebby coached like he was looking for a big fat contract this afternoon.
No doubt.
That's for darn sure. Gosh, Brandon, this offense, it gets humming when they are taking shots down the field to their best playmakers at wideout, and when they are feeding the ball to Gavin Sawchuk in the running game. Those are the two things that work and have worked all year for Oklahoma.
And anytime Austin Stogger gets multiple targets, what happens to the offense? And it's not because Austin Stogner. I'm just saying anytime a tight end in this offense does it, Parker. What happens?
I mean,
the offense hums, right?
I don't know that I would necessarily call that a key component of the offense humming, but yes, it is. There is a coincidence.
It's a coincidence, a correlation. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I'm a tight end guy. So
yeah, man.
That sounded really bad now that I think about it.
Wow. It slipped by me too, but
wow.
Yeah, I'm sure people will have fun with that in the comments.
Go ahead, have at it. Go ahead.
No, okay. So we have all 12 regular season games behind us now, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about this game. I want to unpack it. It was a fun one. It was a prolific one for the Oklahoma offense. But in considering what happened in this football game, I cannot help but reflect back upon the Kansas game and the Oklahoma State game. Because today continues to emphasize, if it was not abundantly clear in the West Virginia game, that everything was in a funk for those 2 weeks of the season. And not only that, but in a very practical sense, Jeff Lebby and this Oklahoma offense were simply not doing the things that worked in those two games. And it cost the Sooners big time because they need an Oklahoma State loss tomorrow to play for a conference title in Arlington. And if they don't, man, look, I understand the expectations for this team going into the year were 9-10 wins. Okay, so they met expectations. They're 10-2. Great. They hit the Vegas over on their win total. That's awesome. Their season has been on the whole commensurate with our expectations, Brandon. But if you are a Sooner fan right now, you cannot help but feel like there was some meat left on the bone. Because when you see your offense take the field and perform the way that they did today, as effortlessly as they did today, and when you see that for two consecutive home games against West Virginia and obviously today against TCU with kind of an odd road game featuring a mid-game quarterback switch sandwiched in between at BYU, you kind of write that off as something of a fluke. But even so, the way that this offense has begun to click over the last 3 weeks makes you wonder as a fan, why on earth didn't they or couldn't they have figured out that this was the recipe, that this was the calculus that was going to propel you to victory earlier on in the season? Because a lot of things cost you those games against Kansas and Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
But if that offensive philosophy opens up a bit more and you're more aggressive and you're taking shots down the field and you're establishing the run with your most dynamic back, which is and has been Sawchuk, then gosh, man, 69 points on the board today. 69 points in a conference game.
And let's call it what it is. Oklahoma could have named their score today. They really could have. But there was possessions even in the first and second half where Oklahoma pulled the reins back a little bit to try to wind the clock down, and it cost them their rhythm during that drive, and ultimately ended up in. I think they could have at least hit 80 today if they really wanted to.
I mean,
if they really wanted to. There was 8 points off the board, specifically on the field goal drives, that I can think of off the top of my head where you could tell they were just trying to grind the clock out and just take chunks out of the time of possession there because they were trying to give the defense a break because it wasn't doing its job. And there was a post on the board today where it's like Jeff Lebby's an idiot after he scored 69 points, which is just
at face value asinine.
Peak peak crazy Oklahoma fan, right? But thank you for being a member. We really do appreciate it, honestly. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Lebby ran Sawchuk, 20 times, 22 times a day, right? 22 times.
22 carries. Yep.
Yeah, 22 carries. Gavin, that is the most he's ever carried ever in a game. And Oklahoma tried to run the clock out in the second quarter. They tried to take chunks out. In the third quarter, they had their second drive. They took 5 minutes off the clock. And after that, people were getting mad. They're like, well, they're not taking chunks on the clock, so the defense is getting tired. Look, Jeff Lebby can only call the plays. If Oklahoma scores on 3 plays in 2 minutes, essentially he's doing his job. Scoring 69 points, you should never lose a game. Yeah, I get that the defense didn't play well and that they were on the field a lot today.
Yep.
Totally get that.
Yep.
But you'll take if you win 69-45 every game, every season, you'll take it. Because Oklahoma's defense is good. As bad as they played, they are good enough to keep somebody from scoring 69 points.
Yeah, I mean, heck, they're good.
There is zero chance another team scores 69 on them.
They're good enough to keep somebody from scoring 45 points. And I don't mean to make excuses for them, but
there's no excuse.
When you're up 42-13, do you have that same corner dog type of mentality as you do when you're up 14-13? No, not by a long shot. And so, like, I don't completely write off Oklahoma's defensive struggles today. I don't think you can, but I think you can chalk at least some of it up to the reality that the Sooners were playing with a massive lead at a certain point, and it's only natural to be a little more willing to ease off the throttle as a defense in that type of situation. Now, offensively, there was one mistake made all day that I can recall, and it was Dylan Gabriel going deep for Brennan Thompson. Underthrows him by a couple yards. It gets undercut by the defensive back. It's an interception. Okay, whatever. In the grand scheme, with as effectively and efficiently as this offense moved the football today, that's fine. If that's the only mistake you make all day, 10 times out of 10, you'll win. If you make one mistake offensively, you're going to win a ton of football games. And I think that's maybe what I love to see the most today from Oklahoma, Brandon, is that it wasn't on one guy's shoulders, right? Obviously, Dylan Gabriel was the catalyst, as he is for this offense, but Gavin Sawchuk found pay dirt 3 times. He had a hat trick today. Tawi Walker rushed for a touchdown. Nick Anderson had another huge day, including another 50-plus yard reception. Drake Stoops caught 12 passes. Jaden Gibson made another huge play down the field. A play that would have, oh gosh.
One of the funniest plays ever.
It was hilarious. But like that dude is already roaring at the fans before he's even crossed the goal line, and he's got a dude on his back that he's dragging into the end zone. Like if somehow he doesn't score on that play, I think Emmett Jones might have kneecapped him right there on the sideline. But he scored. It was a fun moment. It was awesome. And Jaden Gibson is quickly becoming not only a fan favorite, but a media favorite, because he is just good for absolute gold in the post-game interviews. And I mean, shoot, on the field as well, apparently, because that was a golden moment today, not just for the catch, but the way he scored. So you have Anderson and Gibson and Stoops all having big days through the air. You mentioned Austin Stogner's contributions, and they weren't hugely substantial, but made a couple catches, made a couple plays for this offense. And then Brennan Thompson, man.
Yeah.
Every single time they put him on the field, you know what he's on the field to do. And that is
except when he dropped the first down against Oklahoma State.
Yeah, well, and I think that was maybe that was the moment where Oklahoma realized, okay, we're just never going to have this guy run around under 20 yards ever again. Because I mean,
not
heck,
a possession receiver.
yeah, look, that's what he's good for, right? That's what the dude does. Is he's gosh, man, he just the way he runs through a secondary, the way he can just outrun anybody that he is matched up against, and effortlessly, it's astonishing. And you figure that's a dude that, like, if SEC defenses don't get prepared for what he brings to the table and they don't pay attention to the film and make sure they have him highlighted as a guy that they have to account for every single time he's on the field, you have to figure that with Jackson Arnold taking the reins in 2024, a guy who's got a bit more arm talent than Dylan Gabriel, well, not a bit more, a lot more arm talent than Dylan Gabriel, and is going to be far less prone to underthrow those deep balls. Brennan Thompson is a guy that as many home runs as he has had for Oklahoma here in 2023, I can think of 3 off the top of my head. As many as he has had this year for Oklahoma, he's going to have a heck of a lot more in 2024 as a junior with JFA running the show.
The OU Insider Under the Visor podcast is brought to you in part by Manscaped. Merry Ballsmas from our friends over at Manscaped. Keep calm and let your balls jingle this season with Manscaped's brand new Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. Included in this special sack is the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, the Weed Whacker 2.0 ear and nose trimmer, Manscaped's liquid formulations, and 2 free gifts. Starting with Santa's #1 helper, we have the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. This 5th generation trimmer features 2 next-gen blade heads, a standard trimmer blade for taking a little off the top, and a new foil blade to go for that smooth finish wherever your heart desires. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra body trimmer and the Weed Whacker 2.0 nose and ear hair trimmer feature proprietary advanced skin-safe technology to protect your delicate presence. Plus, both are waterproof, so there's no issue clearing the snow out of your driveway. And now that you've groomed the candy cane, it's time to make sure you don't smell like a reindeer with the Crop Soother Aftershave Lotion and Crop Preserver Anti-Chafe Ball Deodorant. Once they touch your sack, you'll never go back. The gift of Manscaped doesn't stop there. This bundle comes with 2 free gifts: Manscaped's Boxers 2.0 Premium Underwear and the Shed 2.0 Toiletry Bag. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code OU Insider at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code OU Insider. Manscaped, get your jingle balls ready for the holidays.
Yeah, so there's a lot that's always been made of Dylan Gabriel's arm. He doesn't have he's not the strongest arm on the team.
No.
But he has a strong arm. And I wanted that to make sense to people. I've watched him. So in the Everett Center after the camps during last summer and this summer, even the little kid camps when my kids were at that stuff, he would come in and they would start working, right? And the first thing he would do is he'd warm up and they would run and loosen up a little bit more. And he would have a receiver and or a manager and or a whoever out there catching in the end zone. And he would go back to the minus 35 and he would drop back and just throw it into the end zone as far as he could. And he would do that 20, 30 times until his arm was completely worn out on throwing deep. My point to that is he worked very hard to strengthen his arm to be able to the ball, the Brennan Thompson, where he released it. Guess where he was at? He was on the minus 35 and he threw that 5 yards into the end zone. So he could throw the ball 60 yards in the air. That's not a bad, and that was into the wind. I want to add you, that was into the wind. It's not Jackson Arnold where you can throw it 80 yards.
Well, and this is
60, 65. That's adequate. It's an adequate arm.
And we talk about it a lot, and the term gets almost overused, but Sooner fans have been spoiled by elite quarterback play. But even more so than that, they have been spoiled by elite arm talent because Kyler Murray, well, not so much Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has an average arm. Kind of in the same camp as Dylan Gabriel in that regard. But
yeah, but Baker and Kyler could throw that damn ball 1,000
Baker,
yards.
Kyler, Spencer Rattler, Caleb Williams. absolutely ridiculous arm talent.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost become uncommon, or like it's Sooner fans have lost the appreciation, I think, for guys who can play the quarterback position effectively absent a 5-star arm. And Dylan Gabriel has a perfectly adequate arm.
He's a 4-star arm.
He's got it in the grand scheme of things, the landscape of college football. Dylan Gabriel has a solidly above average arm. He just doesn't have a 5-star arm. And you know what? If some Sooner fans are pissed off by that, whatever. You're going to have a 5-star arm next year. So it'll be right back to the status quo over the last 6-7 years.
You're going to have a 5-star arm. The next 3 quarterbacks that come through, they're elite arms. So the days of you being mad at a 65-yard bomb, you're going to be able to get the 70-yarder in there, 75-yarder if it has to happen. So look, but more than anything, I think Dylan Gabriel has, as much as he has been maligned by OU fans, I think they need to understand that he's also resurrected the program. And when I say resurrect the program, I'm talking.
You're going to catch some flack for that comment.
I don't give a damn. Come at me, because they are 10-2 this year.
They are.
They're not 10-2 because Dylan Gabriel caused them to be 10-2. Dylan Gabriel put how many points on the board every time that they've lost? Or the
33 and 24 points, respectively.
And the 24 points, right? The ball was taken out of his hands. Was it not? We just griped about that
to a much greater extent than it was in any other game this season. Absolutely. Yes. It was taken out.
Okay. So my point is made. You put the ball in 8's hands. Every time they've done that this year, they've won the ball game. The defense didn't do their job against Kansas. Dylan took him down and the go-ahead score, right? Correct. But the defense did not stop them. And I know this is going to be a shot at Lebby, or seem a shot at Lebby, or play calling took the ball out of his hand. That 4th down play, the ball was taken out of his hands. Against Oklahoma State, the ball was taken. The dude was a proven runner and thrower during that game and was taken out of his hands. So that's my point. He's played well enough to take the team that was 6-7 that had they struggled talent last year. They struggled with consistency last year. And a lot of it wasn't the offense last year, because the offense was top 10 offense again in 2022, correct? The defense didn't just do their job again. The 2 games you lost this year was defense, and the ball was taken out of number 8's hands. When 8 was given the chance to win the game for you, he did so. And that's my point when I say resurrect. So don't take it as I'm saying he resurrected the program and he's the reason why or all that. No, my point is that he was kind of the foundation of which this season was laid upon. Him, and I would probably say Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman were probably the 3 guys that the team was laid upon, right? You lose Danny Stutzman against Kansas, and he was hurt against Oklahoma State. You took the L in both of those games. The ball was taken out of Dylan's hand against Oklahoma State, and in critical situations against Kansas, you lost those ball games. Billy Bowman didn't play as well as he normally does against Kansas and Oklahoma State. You lose those ball games. Those 3 guys play well, you win. Or 2 of those 3 play well every game, you win. Do you see where I'm coming from, Parker, on that?
Yeah.
Like that to me is what I'm talking about. And now you're able to start to build other pieces around it. And you have Nick Anderson, you have Gavin Sawtruck, You have Kip Lewis.
Man,
You have.
think about this. Losing Drake Stoops is going to hurt.
It's going to hurt.
Will. But a wide receiver trio of Andrell Anthony, Nick Anderson, and Jaden Gibson next year, holy smokes. That's going to be a problem in the SEC.
Yep.
That is going to be a problem.
But do you understand what I'm coming from when I'm talking about how there was a lot. If you didn't have Dylan Gabriel this year, and Jackson Arnold was as great as Jackson Arnold is and going to be, do you win 10 games?
Yeah. Well,
I don't think you do. It's a freshman.
I would just say, like, your original comment was that he resurrected the program. I think that was a little strong. The way I would phrase it was maybe he catalyzed the resurgence. I think that's fair.
Okay, correct. And that's what I was getting at when I said everything. I used the wrong word, so don't come at me, I guess, because that's not what I meant. He was a strong piece of the foundation of which this program went from subpar to now back to the top of the conference. We're near the top of the conference. And that to me is critical because you needed that momentum going into the SEC.
Okay, so you said
it badly.
So you've used past tense in this whole conversation, was pertaining to Dylan Gabriel's tenure at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So let's kind of pivot here because your expectation and everyone's expectation is that Dylan Gabriel has played his last.
I asked him, and he just beat around the bush on it.
Yeah, which I mean, it makes sense, and I think that's kind of been the expectation from the get-go, is that it's going to be 2023 for DG at OU. That's his swan song, and it's the Jackson Arnold show in 2024. So nothing necessarily to write home about in that capacity. But who else you think stays and who else you think goes? Because I'll tell you, there were two non-seniors that went through senior day festivities today. Andrew Rame and Tyler Guyton.
This episode of the OU Insider Under the Visor podcast is brought to you in part by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. And folks, I love using HelloFresh to throw together a quick and nutritious meal before I head out the door on the recruiting trail or to cover a Sooner football game on the weekends. The holiday season can be hectic, and that's where HelloFresh's 15-minute meals come in. These quick fixes help you get a wholesome meal on the table in less time than it takes to get delivery. In case you missed it, HelloFresh is so much more than delicious dinners. HelloFresh can help take the hassle out of every mealtime occasion with easy breakfasts, quick lunches, and snacks, all delivered with your weekly box. Go to HelloFresh.com/OUInsiderFree and use code OUInsiderFree for free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/OUInsiderFree with code OUInsiderFree. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
Rame's gone, and you know why I know that. I would bet money Rame's gone. Guyton, I don't particularly think it's I don't think it's a good move for Rame to go. I don't think it's a good move for Guyton to go. Maybe I'm mistaken on that. Maybe I'm underselling their potential within the draft, because I think Guyton was a surefire first rounder.
You said was
correct. I've talked to people, and they've all said that it is not a guarantee the way it was. 7-8 games through the season. There are scouts through sources I've spoken with that seem to feel like he now is late second, third round pick. Obviously the combine can change that. A pro day can change that. A lot can change a person's draft status as we get into January, February, March, and April.
Sure.
You and I both know that.
Yeah.
But as we sit here today, November 24th, I see Rame as a 4th or 5th rounder, and I see Guyton as a 2nd, 3rd rounder, not a 1st rounder right now. And so Oklahoma, if you're Oklahoma, when you have the meetings with them next week, right?
Yep.
Let's say they don't make the Big 12 title.
I was about to say, hopefully 2 weeks from now.
Let's say they don't. Let's for just this argument's sake, or conversation's sake, they don't make the Big 12 title.
Okay.
They're going to have meetings next week, and they're called exit meetings. So the players that are going to hit the portal are going to hit the portal because they're going to be asked to hit the portal and or are going to decide to hit the portal on their own accord. The players that enter the draft are going to be asked to go into the draft and or enter the draft on their own accord. I think when Guyton and Rain meet with the staff, they were going to say, I would not do that to them. I would stay. Yeah. Obviously, they want what's best for the kids. They've told kids to leave. They told Eric Gray he should go. Right.
Yeah.
So
and I think if it's a guy like Tyler Guyton, right, you're obviously for and this I don't know how this comes off, but it's almost more for selfish reasons than for the kid's own good that you want him to come back, right? Because Tyler Guyton, realistically, that's a guy that can very well go and bet on himself throughout the process. And who knows, maybe he does end up being a 1st rounder. Worst case scenario with his athletic traits, he's probably off the board by the end of day 2. But with a guy like Andrew Rame and anybody else that falls into that category, likely day 3 that has the opportunity to return, you know who you're pointing to as evidence why these guys should stay and play out their final year or 2? Jalen Redmond. Because Jalen Redmond could have come back for Oklahoma in 2023. He chose not to. He went undrafted. He is currently unemployed, at least in the sport of football. So if you're trying to convince a guy like Andrew Rame or even Woody Washington, and look, I don't expect Woody back. I will say that. I do not expect him to return. But for a guy like that, Rame, Washington, who's another guy that would fall into that same category?
You think Guyton should go even if he's day 2? With the potential to be a top 15 pick if he has a good senior season.
Yeah, well, I think
that's what he has. He has that potential.
And you know what? I don't feel like I can stand there in that kid's shoes and say definitively whether or not
that's fair. That's fair.
Because basically, you're getting, if you're Guyton, you're getting paid.
Right.
And you're getting an NFL contract if you enter the draft pool. Can't say the same if you're pretty much anybody else right now.
Yeah. It was like Marvin Mims last year. They told Marvin Mims he should go because he's a slot receiver. He was a 2nd round pick and he was never going to get any higher than that because he's a slot receiver.
Yeah.
Slots go 2nd, 3rd, 4th.
Yeah. And so Dejon Terry is maybe another guy that falls into that same category. Trying to think who else.
Dejon's going to return from what I'm hearing.
Yeah. And I don't really worry about him going, but basically anybody that has the option to come back for an additional year, but has some hope of getting drafted, you're saying, hey, you really want to end up being the next Jalen Redmond? Is that a risk you want to run? Because you can bet on yourself and that's fine and well. But
you want to know who's in that category? Dylan Gabriel.
There you go. There you go. And but the point is okay, you can bet on yourself, but does the risk outweigh the reward? And I would say for the vast majority of those guys, if not all of them, yes, the risk drastically outweighs the reward. And Redmond is the most recent example. He's far from the only one. CJ Colden, man, if he'd come back for another year, imagine what a field day he'd be having opposite Woody Washington right now. And maybe Gentry Williams finds a way to end up starting a cornerback one way or another. But even so, with the injury issues that he has had, CJ Colden would be, the Sooners would have loved.
Gentry may not have gotten injured because he wouldn't have as much wear and tear on the tires.
Yeah, if you got 3 cornerbacks that you're confident in, that you can rotate and they can play either side of the field, man, that would have been big time for the Sooners. But Adrian Ely, right? Another guy that chose to bolt a year early, 2 years early, even, if I remember correctly. And
Marquise Hayes,
did
Tyrese
not end up
Thompson.
getting drafted.
Tyrese
Marquise
Thompson.
Hayes. Yep. Another one. So you've got this entire pool of guys that have tried this in years past, and it has not worked for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the crux of your pitch to guys like Rame right now as you engage in these meetings is, hey, you know what? We understand if you want to try and go get paid, just understand what you're getting yourself into if this is the direction that you go, and understand that the risk outweighs the reward drastically at this point in your career, given what your projected draft stock is.
So with that said, I'm going to name it, and let's both say stay or go. Okay. Billy Bowman, I say stay.
Stay.
Yep. Danny Stutzman.
Stay.
Dejoun Terry.
Stay.
Woody Washington, we both think go.
Yeah, I think he's gone.
Tyler Guyton.
I think he ends up leaving as well.
I agree. Andrew Rain, we both think he leaves.
Yeah.
And this could be gone for portal purposes too. So let's do that.
Gabriel.
What if I said he stays in college, but he plays somewhere else next year?
Oh no, are we turning the page to the Lebby discourse here?
let's put a pin in the Lebby discourse for a second and keep doing this. We'll bounce back to that in a second. Marcus Major.
Gone. I think he's gone.
Transfer.
Or just done playing football. Talked to a source today that told me Marcus Major just might elect to be done after this year, which, I think it would make sense. Like even if he were to transfer, where is he going to end up?
Yeah, no. Trying to think. What's another good player that is kind of a fringe guy? Oh, Key Lawrence.
Who's that now?
Key Lawrence.
I think Lawrence is gone.
I agree. I think he transfers. By the way, he got in an argument with Venables on the sideline today. Did you see that?
I did not see that, but I heard about it.
Yikes.
Yeah. Not good.
Not good. No. Who's another?
I think we've just about exhausted it. That's everybody that immediately.
Savion Bird.
Oh, well, I mean, like if he leaves, he's going to the portal, right?
Right, but does he? Never mind. I don't want to say that publicly. We both know why he may not be able to get in the portal. So,
and I just, as far as guys that may or may not enter the portal, I don't even want to. I mean, I basically
Javonte Barnes.
I think he stays. He stays.
Okay.
But
all right, back to let's do Dylan Gabriel. I said I could see him transferring, and you said, "Are we going to go to the Lebby discourse?"
I think.
Does he follow Lebby to Mississippi State if Lebby takes a job? I say yes. This is just us guessing.
I think he leaves. I think he goes to the NFL because I think the counsel that he's going to get is probably in line with what I've said for the last couple months regarding this conversation with Gabriel, which is that is his draft stock ever going to be much higher than it is right now after the season that he has had? And is there ever going to be another year in the NFL where there is a more immediate need for quarterbacks than there is as we sit here today, Brandon, because Tim Boyle just started an NFL game. Tim Boyle.
Yeah, okay.
So there are 10 to 12 teams right now in the NFL that are going to end up drafting at least one quarterback. And if you are Dylan Gabriel, Do you think are you that confident that you end up with the same ranking relative to the rest of the quarterback class next year than this year? Because I would say without question, Dillon Gabriel is a top 10 quarterback prospect in this year's NFL draft pool. I don't know if I can say the same about next year.
Well, see, I kind of think next year may be more because I think the quarterback class this year is not only top heavy, but it's fairly deep.
I don't think it's deep. I think it
You
is
don't
top
think it's
heavy.
deep?
Caleb Williams, Drake May. Beyond that,
So
mean-
is he better than Sam Hartman?
oh yeah, I would take him over Sam Hartman in a heartbeat.
Bo Nix?
No, I think Bo Nix probably gets drafted higher. I think Jaden Daniels probably gets drafted higher. But again, like even if you can rattle off 5-6 names, I think Dillon Gabriel is still easily a top 10 guy in this upcoming quarterback class. And I don't think with how many variables there are in the equation and how many late risers you may see, I don't think you can say for certain that that will be the case next year.
Does Jordan Travis return now because of his injury?
He can't. He can't. He's done.
Okay, well then he's in that. So you have Drake May, Jordan Travis, Penix.
Well, with as catastrophic an injury as Jordan Travis suffered, I don't know that NFL teams are going to be all too eager to pull the trigger on him nearly as early as they might otherwise.
JJ McCarthy, Jaden Daniels.
I'm not. I don't see it with JJ McCarthy. Maybe that's a hot take.
KJ Jefferson.
I'd take DG over KJ Jefferson.
What
but
about?
Anyway.
Well, the reason I ask all this, yeah. So I think he's probably top 10. But the reason I'm kind of fringe on this and why I think he could potentially transfer if he doesn't come back to Oklahoma, I could see him totally transferring because that's great. Being a top 10 quarterback in the draft, being a 4, 5 round pick, 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick, 6th round pick, maybe. It may go undrafted. He may go undrafted still. Like that's not a guarantee. But what is guaranteed is his NIL. And that's where things get kind of foggy in the whole enter, not to enter, transfer, stay, all that. With how popular he is in Hawaii, his NIL is fat, no matter what he does. Okay. So he's got a guaranteed, I would 6-figure, maybe 7-figure job in college football. Would you throw that away for potential practice squad money and or maybe not even that?
I think he would make a 53-man roster if and I think he would quite easily make a 53-man roster if he were drafted in April. And I also think, you talk about the NIL, that's great, right? Awesome that he has that option at his disposal and awesome that that's something he can count on, but it's for 1 year, right? It's for 1 year. And so.
Well, it's guaranteed more than the NFL is guaranteed. And that's where I'm at.
But as an NFL rookie, you're getting a multi-year contract.
Correct. If you make drafted. The 53-man roster.
Yeah. So if I am Dillon Gabriel and I have done what I have done this season and over the course of my collegiate career, I am more confident right now entering the NFL draft, given this pool of quarterbacks and given the league's need for answers at that position, then I would be waiting it out another year, maybe transferring elsewhere for a one-off season. Because here's the thing, right? Let's just say, for the sake of the hypothetical, Jeff Lebby is indeed the next head coach at Mississippi State, and Gabriel follows Lebby to MSU, plays in Starkville for a year. Can you count on having the same statistical year or even the same peripheral year, just in terms of the perception?
Oh, no, he wouldn't have as good a year.
Exactly. And so if you're done at Oklahoma, I feel like this is where you cash your chips in because you don't know what the future holds. And for that reason, I'm not really that sure you can be confident.
Well, that's kind of my point. You don't know what the future holds because of the NFL, but you're guaranteed, you know, the future with the NIL. No matter how you play on the field, that NIL is guaranteed.
Yeah, well, I would argue at that point you're doing it for money's sake and not football's sake.
That's fine, but I mean, that's what this NIL is. It's money. So I look, I don't know. I've heard lots of different things regarding Dylan Gabriel over the last week. So he said he doesn't know what his plans are. He plans on playing in the bowl game, wherever that may lie, potential Big 12 title. If they backdoor them, if BYU can beat Oklahoma State, that's his plan. Outside of that, he doesn't know what he's going to do. And I don't think we're going to know what he's going to do, even if Lebby takes the Mississippi State job, which Parker, let's ask that question here, right now.
Here we go.
We've heard it. He's one of the top 2 candidates for it right now. He's interviewed for the job. We reported all this crap earlier this week that he has moved up to the top of the list and that they've done a lot of due diligence and talked to him. We were one of the first people that threw that stuff out there this week. Does he take the job? Because if I'm Jeff Lebby and Oklahoma said, you're making $2.1 million at Oklahoma, you're going to the SEC already. You have either Dylan Gabriel as your starter and Jackson Arnold as your backup next year, and or you have Jackson Arnold as your starter at Oklahoma next year with potential of 7 returning starters on offense. What are you doing taking that job when you know Oklahoma's going to go, okay, so we're going to give you $3 million now to stay here, and they're offering you $4.5 million, $5 million. Is it worth going to a job that is almost a dead-end head coaching job that nobody's been able to win with since – who was the last person to win there?
Dan Mullen.
Dan Mullen in 2015. So it's been almost a decade. And before Dan Mullen and Dak Prescott showed up there, which they lucked into that. Well, because Dak Prescott wasn't like this hugely thought of person. Like, they lucked into his development, right? You see where I'm coming from on that. So,
yeah,
like, that job is not someplace you go and you. Mike Leach won 6, 7, 8 games every year at the most. Is that really what you? Because you'll just be stuck there. Nobody's going to go, well, you're winning 6, 7, 8 games in Mississippi State. Let's go hire that coach. No. That is a job where you go to wither away in college football. And it's no offense to you Bulldogs fans that are watching this. No shot to you all. I know you're proud of your program, but we're comparing Oklahoma to Mississippi State. And that isn't a shot. It's reality. It is reality. Do you take, I know we both think he's probably going to take the job if he's offered it, but I wouldn't, because if you have a really good season and you win 9, 10 games in the SEC with Jackson Arnold as essentially a freshman, even though he's going to be labeled a sophomore at quarterback, you're going to get a better job. Let's say Florida opens up. He coached at UCF. If anything, that is going to be a job that they look at Lebby and go, he knows the area. He's recruited really well. He built UCF up into a really strong program while he was there. He's recruited Florida well when he was at Oklahoma. Let's go hire that guy. Like, he's going to be in candidacy jobs for higher, better jobs if he sticks it out at Oklahoma. And that's where I'm at. Like, sometimes you've got to bite the bullet and not get paid $5 million, instead get paid $3 million. Wah. And be the OC for a couple of extra years to get that job. I mean, look at Venables was patient. Look at all the Stoops was patient. How many jobs did Stoops get offered before he got the Oklahoma gig?
That was before my time. I do not know.
Right. It was a lot. When he was at Florida, he stayed there, 2-3 years, even turned down head coaching jobs at Kansas State. Who else was very patient? Lanning was patient for a couple of years at Georgia.
And
Kirby Smart was super patient for like a decade, and he ended up at Georgia.
And
you see where I'm coming from?
Yes, and here's the way I look at it, right? Like, we have no stake. You and I have no stake in whether or not Jeff Lebby ends up taking the Mississippi State job. Guess what? If he does take the job, we're in the midst of an OC search, brief as it may be. I think we both expect Seth Luttrell. Like that'll, heck, it'll be good for business because people
if they don't just
what the buzz is.
Up and he announces and they just the same day they just go Seth Luttrell's the new OC.
Yeah, so
that
like
would be
from
shot in the
business
nuts.
standpoint, like if Jeff Lebby ends up taking the Mississippi State job, we're not wringing our hands over it. So like I'm coming at this from a very objective standpoint, and I'm trying to put myself in Jeff Lebby's shoes. And I think it is a different conversation if we're talking about a job with, well, how do I phrase this? I don't want to offend anyone. But here's the thing about Mississippi State, and here's how I've
already done it. Go ahead,
Brandon. In the context of the new SEC, can you expect to win at Mississippi State? Because that new SEC, especially once Oklahoma and Texas are in it, that is an absolute meat grinder of a conference. I mean, that is, consider this. Florida has had 2 consecutive losing seasons in the current SEC, not the new SEC, after hiring the sexiest name on the carousel. I should rephrase this: sexiest G5 name on the carousel 2 years ago. And Florida is a program that has a ton of resources, a ton of history, a ton of tradition. That roster's not barren, wasn't when Napier got there. And so that right there is a program that is bestowed inherently with far more than Mississippi State is, and yet they are struggling to win right now in the SEC. At Mississippi State, you also are struggling to win in the SEC. Those struggles are going to be exacerbated when Oklahoma and Texas join the conference. And this has kind of been the point I've been trying to drive home with the Lebby discourse really ever since this became a conversation. And I guess it's been a conversation for a while now at this point. If you make the transition with Oklahoma to the SEC and Jackson Arnold is running the show for your offense, and you give that a year or two, I think the jobs that you will have at your disposal, that you are getting interviewed for, and you are a serious consideration for, are going to be vastly better opportunities than the opportunity at Mississippi State. Like, I think this is a move in retrograde for Lebby career-wise. And it's if indeed he does take the Mississippi State job. And, I get it. If he wants to be a head coach, that's great. I certainly understand that. And if he's confident that with the hand he's dealt at Mississippi State, he can make stuff happen, that's awesome. But again, it's an entirely different conversation right now if we're talking about like the UCLA job, right? Or a job where you're going to have a bit more patience and B, a bit more investment. Maybe UCLA isn't the best example. I'm trying to think of one that, okay, maybe last offseason, a job like Wisconsin, right, where you already have some, you already have something to work with there, and you're not trying to cobble it together. I mean, Zach Arnett got no time at Mississippi State to try and cobble it together. I mean, that was over in a hurry. And so,
and they were a 5-win team.
Yeah. I look at it through the lens of security. I look at it through the lens of opportunity, and I look at it through the lens of support and resources. And this is another thing to keep in mind too. There's obviously a connection to the athletic director there and Zach Selman, but how long is Zach Selman the athletic director at Mississippi State? How much longer does Joe Castiglione have before he hangs up his hat, literally and figuratively, at the University of Oklahoma, because it's pretty common knowledge who the next athletic director after Joe Castiglione at Oklahoma is. Isn't it, Brandon? And it's Zach Selman. So
100%.
if Joe Castiglione is no longer AD at OU 3 years down the road, well, guess who's AD at OU 3 years down the road? It's Zach Selman. Now, if you're at Mississippi State as the head football coach, you got a new athletic director coming in, and who knows, maybe he has his own vision of what he wants the football program to look like. Unless you're winning 9, 10, 11 games at that point, unless that's the standing to which you have built the program, then maybe 7, 8 wins isn't quite enough for that new AD. Maybe it's just enough mediocrity for him to say, okay, you know what? I have my vision, and we're going to move towards executing that vision, and we're going to turn over the football staff. So this is not a job, Brandon, that if I am in Jeff Lebby's shoes, I have a ton of confidence stepping into. But that's just me. This is Jeff Lebby's decision. He is the one at the core and at the forefront of all this. So, you know what? Whatever the case, I know this, the University of Oklahoma is going to be fine. If he ends up the next coach at Mississippi State, they're going to be all right. There might be a minor freak out on the message boards from OU fans, but Joe Castiglione has contingency plans. Brent Venables has contingency plans, and Venables said earlier today in his press conference he always wants his guys to have opportunities elsewhere, but
it needs to be the right time.
Exactly. And that's, he's talked about the encouragement that he's given to his assistants to wait for the right opportunity. And so maybe Jeff Lebby takes that to heart. Maybe he's not the next head coach at Mississippi State. Maybe he is back at OU as offensive coordinator in 2024. But you know what? If he is the next head coach at Mississippi State, I'll be rooting for the guy. I'll say that much. I will be rooting for him to defy the odds, because, again, I think the deck is somewhat stacked against you if you take that Mississippi State job. But I'll be pulling for Jeff Lebby to do the most and be the most as the next head coach at Mississippi State.
And people are going to ask, does Jackson Arnold follow Jeff Lebby to Mississippi State? I cannot see that happening. I just can't. I'll say this. I spoke to a source because Lebby was, even during Jackson's recruitment, Lebby was always up for head coaching jobs, and or the Alabama OC or whatever, like Georgia. Remember, he was attached to both those for a little bit. Alabama pretty heavily, as a matter of fact. And spoke to a source close to Jackson at that point. And I said, would Jackson ever transfer if Lebby was to leave? Their exact quote was, well, it depends on the place, which obviously Mississippi State's not exactly. He liked Ole Miss a lot when Lebby was at Ole Miss, but Ole Miss and Mississippi State are completely two different entities. And that, again, Mississippi State fans, do not take this as like we're sliding you. It's just the reality is Kiffin has made Ole Miss a top 15 program for the last how many years? Yeah. So it's viewed completely different. And before that, Ole Miss was winning, they've had Houston Nutt winning 9, 10 games. They've had, who else has won 9, 10? Several coaches have won at Ole Miss.
Hugh Freeze.
Hugh Freeze at Auburn. Yeah. So Ole Miss has proven that they could be, no matter who's coaching there, they have the athletic department and the program that is going to win 8, 9, 10 games on a regular basis. So even then, Jackson didn't have Ole Miss up like at the top. They were like his third or fourth team. So take that for what it is. the other thing they told me, the source told me about the situation was Jackson is very entrenched at Oklahoma, girlfriend, friends, family. Peyton Bowen's his roommate. He followed him to Oklahoma. Peyton Bowen's girlfriend transferred from Oklahoma, or left Oklahoma's soccer program, went to SMU. Obviously, I don't think they're together. I don't know the whole situation anymore. But the fact of the matter is Peyton stayed at Oklahoma still when people thought he was going to leave at that time. And now his brother is going to Oklahoma. So there's a lot of Denton Guyer people. There's a lot of Denton Guyer people that Jackson is close to already at Oklahoma. He's close to a ton of people in Norman as it is, really good friends with a lot of the team and a lot of the people around the university. So, and you add the girlfriend part, you add the family part, like there's just it's going to be hard to pull Jackson Arnold. So what they also said was, depending on who they hire. So if they hire, let's say they bring in, they just hire within and Seth Luttrell is now the OC. Well, guess what? He's going to stay because Seth Luttrell helps out the offense as an analyst and the players know him. So that right there tells you all you need to know. Like, I've seen Luttrell interact with them, like joking on the side, not because he can't coach, but he's harnessed relationships smartly, I might add. And he's been a very successful offensive coordinator at the P5 level. He was a successful head coach at the G5 level. The fact he got fired at North Texas was mind blown when it happened, because all he was doing was winning 9-10 games a year. And they're like, because he's not winning the conference, or he lost 7 bowl games, and that's why they fired him. That was the excuse. So the dude is a successful coach. He knows what he's doing. He's an OU grad. Venables knows him. The whole program knows him. It's a perfect fit. And I doubt he changes the offense because they ran similar offenses. He's been around this offense the whole time. He probably will put his own little wrinkles to it.
Sure.
But there's going to be some fit. And this is just, Parker and I have talked about this. This is Parker and I's guess. So it's, I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. That said, if it's not Seth Luttrell, do you, to make Joe John Finley stick around, do you make him the OC? And then bring Luttrell on staff and make them co-OCs together along with Bill Beanbo? Do you, who else could, Matt Wells, could he be the OC? Like, there's options inside that room.
There is.
And then outside, like, I'm trying to wrap my head around who would be a good. Do you go and try to go get Kendall Briles at TCU and bring him up, keep the continuity within the offense, to keep the continuity within the players and the quarterbacks? Because one, Jackson Arnold liked Arkansas. Kendall Briles was at Arkansas when he was being recruited. 2, Michael Hawkins loved Kendall Briles at Arkansas.
Yep. Also
at TCU. So now you got, and then obviously you have the same situation with Kevin Sperry. So now you've got the continuity there. Like, what is your, I guess, who would you go after in that situation? Because, I bring up the Briles word, and, there's gonna be a lot of people in the comments are going to go, no way. And obviously, I don't think he's really going to be that one of the top candidates. I was just spitballing OCs and names out there that I knew meshed with the quarterbacks and the players already on the roster at Oklahoma. And that was essentially all I was going for there. But Parker, who are some names you could think of if Lebby was to take that job at Mississippi State?
I mean, so Luttrell is the obvious,
Well, yeah.
like the most obvious candidate. I think my only question under those circumstances would be if Luttrell is your next OC who coaches quarterbacks, because Luttrell's never done that. So, and maybe it's relatively inconsequential, maybe
No, it's important. Yeah.
well, and maybe you just like, I don't know, maybe you don't have a designated quarterbacks coach and you just have Matt Holochek be the guy who's primarily responsible for the QBs, because he is a guy that the quarterbacks all speak very highly of when we've had conversations with them in the past, is Matt Holochek.
I guess he could become the quarterback coach, right? He could just be a quarterback coach instead of just assistant.
You need to lose somebody at that point besides Lebby, because if you add an OC, because Lebby is OC and quarterbacks coach, right? So you can't hire an OC in Luttrell and a quarterbacks coach in Holochek. You got to replace 2 for 2. So
yeah,
I guess what would be
you're losing
easiest,
JoJo on.
Yeah, what would be easiest is if Finley went with Lebby to Mississippi State or wherever, and the Luttrell coaches tight ends, because that is a position he has coached in the past. And then you have somebody like Holochek coaching quarterbacks, and then it's all like math wise, it all makes sense. So yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with Luttrell. I wouldn't have a problem with Matt Wells. I think with as much support as this program has created for itself internally, it makes a ton of sense for the hire to be internal, because you have 2 guys that have been offensive coordinators and have been around the Lebby scheme in Wells and Luttrell. So you don't have to change a ton. You don't have to overhaul a ton. And the less you have to change and the less you have to overhaul with a transition like the one that we could hypothetically be dealing with here, the better off you're going to be.
What about Sean Lewis?
I mean, what about Sean Lewis? You think
I think he's a really good offensive coordinator. I think he's stuck in a position where
he'll be looking for a new job, no question.
Yeah, I don't think he enjoys where he's at. He left Kent State head coaching job to go be the OC at Colorado. The O-line there is awful, but he's still been successful putting points up on the board. And I imagine he could do some pretty remarkable things. I don't know. What about you? Is Jason Candle still the Toledo head coach?
I believe so.
Do you think he would leave that to become the OC at Oklahoma? They run similar. That's what I'm getting at, is because there's some similarities to what they do offensively, scheme wise. So, and he's always been known as a mastermind. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of.
Yeah. Well, and again, I'm not convinced it's really something you have to put a lot of thought into, as blunt as that may sound, because I'm rather certain the hire would come from within. You
want to know how you end it. So say you leave. So you want to know how you bring Matt Hall back in, or what's his name? Matt Holochek.
And I guess my concern with Holochek is maybe he's a guy that goes with Lebby too, because he came with Lebby from Ole Miss.
Yeah, well, if you're going to name him straight up quarterback coach, I think he would take the job at, say, at Oklahoma. But you go to LSU and you get Mike Denbrock.
Ooh.
He's a tight end and OC coach. Bam.
Okay.
I'm just throwing up ideas, but obviously we don't know if Lebby's going to take the job or not. And now we're playing.
I'm sure we can expand this conversation much more drastically on the next podcast if whatever happens. Or I should say, what many fear will happen does end up happening in the next few days.
Yeah. Well, back to the game real quick before we close this out and get some recruiting in. Your offense and defensive player of the games.
Offensive player of the game.
It's easy. Go for it.
Well, is it easy? I feel like there are two very. Oh, I know which one you're going to take.
Three really easy ones.
I will take Dylan Gabriel because I know who you're going to take. I will take Dylan Gabriel. 400 yards through the air, 3 passing touchdowns, another rushing touchdown, another excellent day for the Sooners starting quarterback. And then defensively, man, Kendall Dolby very quietly had an excellent football game for Oklahoma today. And he very quietly has had an excellent season for OU. And he's not a guy whose contributions necessarily show up in the box score as much, at least not in the manner that Billy Bowman's have, for instance. But I love Kendall Dolby, man, because he's just a dog. You know, he's not much more than 5'9", 5'10". He's undersized relative to the rest of the Oklahoma crop of defensive backs, but he flies all over the field, takes good angles. He's a sure tackler, great in coverage, makes plays on the ball, and just has a knack for being in the right place at the right time to come up with a key play for the Sooners defense. Even if it might seem like a pass breakup is far less sexy, I suppose, than an interception. But, end of the day, that can be, third down, you break up a pass, the defense is punting, and you're getting your unit off the field. And Kendall Dolby has been in those situations so many times this year where maybe the play itself isn't something to write home about, but in the moment, it's a high IQ, high skill level type of play that significantly boosts Oklahoma's defense, whether that is in an immediate sense or in a more long-term sense. So I go with Kendall Dolby today because it's about time I tabbed him for one of these post-game awards, because I think he showed out today more than he has in any individual game thus far this season, and that's actually saying quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I had Kendall Dolby as my rapid reaction defensive player since you took him.
You can take the easy one then.
Yeah, I'm going to. Yeah, Billy Bowman. It's going to be my defensive player. Obviously, Billy ended up with 9 tackles, and he had another pick 6. He now is second in the nation with 6 interceptions on the season. He's first in the nation with 3 pick 6s on the season. The dude has been phenomenal. Oklahoma is going to be lucky to have him return next year, which we expect to happen at this juncture. He hasn't made a final decision, so I guess it's not 100% guaranteed that he's going to return. But from everything I've heard, he's leaning towards coming back to Oklahoma for one more year to go into the SEC, and he has just been just a lightning rod on that defense, particularly in the defensive backfield for Oklahoma. And on offense, my rapid reaction was Drake Stoops because I thought he deserved his flowers, senior night, all that type of stuff with 125 yards, receiving 12 receptions and a touchdown. But I'm going to go with my main man, Gavin Sawchuk, who ended the day with 130 yards on 22 receptions and 3 touchdowns. He had a long of 41. He averaged 6 yards a carry. The guy is just nails, and my light just went out. So anyways, yeah, it's been pretty awesome to see what he has been able to do. Just this year since he's been healthy, the hamstring, and then to have an 8-yard run against Kansas and then not touch the ball again until like one try in the third quarter, and then you were just done with it. And so that didn't make sense to us after the UCF game where he won the ball game for him. And now he's had 4 straight games of 100 yards plus, and he had his record today with 130, the most he's ever had in a game. So my offensive player of the game is Gavin Sawchek. All right, recruiting side before we close this out.
Wait, who's your defensive player? Oh, Billy Bowman. You're right.
Yeah, Billy
Okay,
Bowman.
we started there. I was like, hang on. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. But then I remember it already dropped. Yeah, let's do recruiting.
David Stone was in town today, so that was big. Lamont Rogers and Legend Bay made it in.
I don't believe Legend Bay did, actually. Lamont Rogers did. Legend Bay had some family.
Their coach told me they both made it in, so I guess maybe Legend Bay didn't, but Lamont made it in. That was huge. 5-star offensive lineman, 2025 class, out of Mesquite Horn, having him in. Outside of that, Owen Hollenbeck, who was a couple of the other guys, Parker, that
Austin Pay from the state
Austin
of Utah,
Pay,
4-star offensive lineman in the class of 2025. That's going to be a tougher poll than you might imagine, just because his dad played at BYU, brother plays at BYU, and so there's a lot of ties to the Cougar program there.
They're LDS, obviously, right?
I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but
you would assume, right?
Sure. But they like Oklahoma a lot. The visit today went very well for Austin, and so we'll see if he camped with Oklahoma this past summer as well, which I believe is where he earned the offer. So I think that's one to watch going forward. I would imagine, as of right now, I know it's early, I think the Sooners end up being an OV destination for him at the very least. Owen Hollenbeck is a guy I feel really, really good about Oklahoma's chances with. He was at the last home game against West Virginia, back up to Norman again today. And the returns coming out of his visit today were strong enough that I actually entered a future cast for him in favor of Oklahoma. And I think that there's a very good chance that the first one through the wall with Bill Bedenbow in the class of 2025 is Owen Hollenbeck.
I too did the same.
Oh,
but
nice.
Yeah, I called some people after you texted me to make sure that I got some confirmation on some of it. And yeah, it's Owen Hollenbeck. Kind of shocking a little bit because obviously Texas A&M, TCU, a lot of the Texas schools were starting to push pretty hard for him. To have Oklahoma come in and look to be trending in a very, very good direction for him.
Yeah, well,
it's huge.
I think there are three major factors that make Oklahoma the outright leader, top contender for Owen Hollenbeck. He's got a sister at OU. He's big on proximity, and Oklahoma is less than 2.5 hours from his hometown in Melissa. And then, of course, the Nigel Smith factor. Mm-hmm. He's got a teammate who is a very outspoken peer recruiter on behalf of the Sooners.
And I guess on Lamont Rogers, the 2025 offensive lineman out of Mesquite Horn, who was in, I spoke to a source just over the last few days about him. And essentially what I was told was Oklahoma and then LSU. And it looks like Oklahoma's doing all they can. It looks like they're the leader in the clubhouse right now. I think for what 2024 is going to be for Oklahoma on the defensive line side, particularly because of the region and how deep it was in the region of defensive line for Oklahoma to be able to tap into in 2024. I think you look at the 2025 offensive line side and you see similarities, right? Like it's very deep in 2020. Look, I can't remember the kid's name off the top of my head just right now because it's late. But I think, can't remember if it's Owasso has a 2025 offensive lineman that's picking up a ton of steam.
You thinking of Riker Half?
Riker Half, there you go. Yeah, picking up a ton of steam. I think he could potentially be an offer guy down the road. But then you've got, Ty Haywood, Fatsusi,
Andrew Babalola. That's
Andrew Babalola. Like these are all guys 3-4 hour drives from Norman and have Oklahoma very high on their list on the offensive line side. So for everybody that's looking at the 24 class of offensive line and going, what are you doing? Okay, we'll revert back to 2023 defensive line recruiting and how upset you guys were. And then you see 24 defensive line be just a 180, right? As far as depth, as far as talent, as far as what Oklahoma's bringing in on the defensive line, and know that that's probably what's going to happen in 25 as far as the offensive line recruiting for Oklahoma. Whereas Beatonbow's going to lean 24 on transfer portals more or less than anything else. Just the same as the improvement on the defensive line this year was led through transfers with Bates and Chavis, right? Well,
and
now,
I think it's worth remembering, and I'm going to draw this parallel because I think it's an important one to draw. Earlier in the season, after the Kansas loss and certainly after the Oklahoma State loss, one thing that I continually tried to impress upon the fan base was, hey, coaches get better, coaches learn lessons, coaches improve just like players do, right? Mm-hmm. And you've seen that with Jeff Lebby. I think you're going to see that with Bill Beatonbow and how he approaches the 2025 class, because in speaking to a very good source on the matter, one of the things I was told was, and who knows, by the time this podcast drops, at least on YouTube, maybe Grant Brix will have announced a commitment to Nebraska. And so obviously that's kind of the thing that's fresh in OU's fans' minds right now, is the Brix recruitment that has taken a late swing toward the Huskers instead of Oklahoma. But a very good source as it pertains to Oklahoma's offensive line recruiting told me straight up, hey, look, Bill's done with small town kids. He's pretty, like, after Brix, he's pretty much done with small town kids. He's just going to make his living in the state of Texas. They'll go up north for Babalola, but that's pretty much it. There's enough talent down there in the Lone Star State that's where they're just going to try to dig in the 2025 class. And I think with Oklahoma coming off a double-digit win season, you don't have to overcome concerns as much so as you have had to these past few months and this past recruiting cycle, coming off 6 and 7. You put 10 wins on the slate, and guys have a lot less apprehension about what they'd be signing up for at Oklahoma. You already have strong inroads in the state of Texas as it is. Yeah, man, if you're Bill Beatonbow and it is a really good offensive line class in 2025, especially in the Lone Star State, you don't need to look anywhere else. You don't need to look hardly anywhere else but Texas.
Yeah, like I said, very similar to 2024 defensive line is what's happening in 25 offensive line. So I think patience, it's hard to do if you're an Oklahoma fan. And I know you look at the recruiting rankings and all that, but also know that some of Bill Beatonbow's, most of his top talent has been 3-star guys, lower 4-star guys, and not the elite top guys. He's a very good developer. The guys that progress underneath him and develop underneath him are the hard-nosed guys. And notoriously, the elite guys sometimes aren't made from that cloth, if you will. So, just patience. The offensive line is going to be fine. It's going to be fine. It has never been a huge weakness of the team. And as long as Bill Beatonbow's been around or stays around, I don't foresee that being an issue. Just a guess. So anyways, it may not be as elite as it once was, or sometimes can be, but I don't think it'll ever be a huge weakness for Oklahoma as long as he's around. All right. Again, OU Insider Black Friday sale going on right now. 75% off, which means $75 is what you're going to get off. Instead of $99, it's $24. And you get a whole year. You will get all the way through the inaugural SEC season starting today, all the way through the SEC season next year if you sign up right now. And it ends on the 27th. The Black Friday sale ends on the 27th, so you need to hurry. As Parker said earlier, it is $3 a month. $3 a month. That's it. That's all it is. You pay $24 and it essentially averages out about $3 a month, or honestly $12 a month, to be honest. So it's $2 a month. Excuse me, not 12. 12 divided by 24 divided by 12 is 2. All right. But point being is that it's a heck of a deal. You get all the recruiting, you get team notes. If you were on OU Insider, you would have known all the questions about Dylan Gabriel all week. OU Insider, our members, they knew he was going to be playing this week. So that's the type of stuff we bring. We bring a lot of our insight. We bring a lot of recruiting stuff. Brody Lusk brings basketball coverage like nobody's business. Nobody covers it like him and Jesse Crittenden.
I think we're going to have to get Brody on the podcast this next week because this Sooner Hoop squad,
they're good.
It's looking like a fun group. They are 6-0, and it's not a cheap 6-0 either. It's an impressive 6-0. They beat a nationally ranked USC team, a trendy Elite 8 preseason pick at that, and beat them to win the Ratty Children's Classic today and stretch that start to 6-0. So Porter Moser might have a team on his hands here in year 3.
And beat one of the top scoring programs in the country in Iowa yesterday as well, and held them to their lowest scoring of the season, I believe. So what a start for Porter Moser and the hoops, OU men's hoops. Anyways, yeah, like that is what we bring. We're going to have softball, baseball. We cover recruiting all the way around. Parker and I are going to be traveling all over the nation starting here in about a month. And it's going to be fun for like the next from January on to, I think, June. Parker and I will be on the road a lot at camps. We'll be hitting high schools up. We will be covering the 25, 26, 27 classes for you. We will have all the evaluations ready for you guys. We will be in front of everybody as far as where Oklahoma stands in the recruiting for all that. And to be in the know on that, all you have to do is sign up OU Insider. $24 gets you a whole year, gets you from now to the bowl, both national signing days, all the transfer portal stuff, the coaching changes, potential coaching changes, I might add. Let me add that preface to that. What else is there? The spring, the junior days, the spring practices, the spring games, the party in the palace, all the official visits, the Champion Barbecue, the fall camp, and then obviously the inaugural SEC season. And that only costs you $24. $24. Or you can join for $9.99 a month, whichever one you want to choose. We just love to see you join the thousands and thousands of OU fans that are already on OU Insider and come join. We answer questions. We do chats. We do it all for you guys. So anyways, all right. Oklahoma won 69-45 today over TCU to end their reign or their stint in the Big 12. Right now, they have 14 Big 12 titles. If Oklahoma State loses tomorrow, they will have a chance to go win number 15 next week. So we will see. We will see how that plays out. All right. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners Postgame Podcast. You guys have a blessed day.